So the last part of this presentation, if we can modify it. We have already talked about that, the way that maybe we cannot modify, we can move on the time, probably to past events, future events, just be there as an observer, but we are not able to modify anything. Or are we able to do it? It's like a river. Are we able to change the course of a river? So instead of going there, go to another place? So let's talk about that. Okay, remember the paradox of the grandfather paradox? Let's talk about something very interesting. Okay, remember that if I went back to time, I can kill my grandfather, so I will never burn. Let's suppose that actually I can do it, and I kill my grandfather, accidentally, as I told you. Some scientists say that it's a possibility that I create a divergence, so another time line. So I create another, let's say, universe or dimension where my grandfather doesn't exist and I do not exist. I am somewhere else, but I'm not there in that universe. In that sense, we can do multiple changes. So this is like a network, like branches that are just all connected. So in some of the possibilities, I am here and I am here because I just burned, but I did some changes in my life. So there's another me here or here. So that's the way what the scientists explain that, and they give that the name of multiverses. So scientists mathematically have demonstrated that there is a possibility that multiverse exists. I mean, the same universe that we have here, but in another dimension, in another space-time configuration, but not this one. But it gives a very interesting explanation. Yeah, I'll explain the grandfather paradox, but give us a lot of questions. So we start to think, what is this? So it means that I can be living in one of those universes where I'm not conscious for the other one, why just one? Because my conscious only give me the information of my current life, not other parallel universe. So it gives us a lot of complications. So instead of showing one answer, it is presenting us more questions. So that's what is called multiverse. But what happens if, for example, you do some changes? Let's say in one of those paths you have a decision. I should get married with that other person, or I should not be married with that other person. But there's two possibilities. So Billy described that the time is something that has some milestones in the evolutions. In these milestones, something could change. For example, during the United States elections, when the people at the United States decide to select between Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, it was a big divergence. What would happen right now if Hillary Clinton had won the election, was the United States president? Probably the destiny of humanity right now would be completely different. That's correct? So if that is changing, it was a very important milestone. There are other small milestones that doesn't make any change. For example, this morning, what did you have for breakfast? Probably you decide, okay, should I have having for breakfast fruits or 2 eggs with bacon? So it's a decision that is not going to change anything. Probably your digestion, but it's not going to change your destiny. So some of those selections are doing big changes in our future, but other changes are not. So in some cases, probably we're very close to ourselves with little divergence. Okay, but can the past we modify it? Is there evidence that the past is modified? What happens if we have already made some changes and we don't know it? It's something that probably we have changed, somehow happened, and I don't know, I'm not really aware of that. Okay, let me show you an example of that. Billy Mayer traveled into France in the 13th century. That's a very interesting story. There is a contact report about that. It's one of the asked explanations, and you will find it on the Future of Mankind website. Very interesting to read it. The people involved on that event, it was Billy Mayer asked. Asked is an extraterrestrial lady that comes from a parallel universe that was with Billy on his early years. Yichi is a guy that is from Russia. He was some kind of wild guy that was very curious, but somehow he was involved there. He doesn't have to be there, but he was involved there. And Yicheli was a pastor, some kind of a religious person, but also a scientist that was recognized in France. So let's look at that story. Asked and Billy Mayer were at the Jordan Desert with their spaceship, and they were there and they met Yichi. Yichi is the Russian guy, and he was talking with them the 2 days before, and he knew Asked, or he met Asked, and he was very curious about them. So he just approached to the place that they were camping, and Yichi noticed that there was a spaceship floating above the ground. So Yichi was with his gun and just approaching that and saw that beam ship floating on the sky. So he just do a couple of shots onto the air just to wake up Asked and Billy that were there. They heard him, and they went down and talked with him. And he just have a very interesting conversation with them. And for some reason, Asked found that Yichi was very curious and invited him to get on board on his spaceship. He just is very curious why a lady that comes from a very high level of evolution in his spaceship invites somebody like Yichi. Yichi he was carrying a gun and with a lot of equipment. In some of his equipment that he has, it has a battery and some kind of little transformer that elevates the voltage of the battery, and a lot of wires. So he used it to sleep at the desert, because on the desert he could have a very dangerous animal that came to his place when he was living at night. So in order to protect himself, so she just put your camp and just surround with a little poles and put the wire around him, and he connect the electrical system. So if any animal just get closer and touch the wire, he just get electrified and just run away. That's a system that many people use today just to have the cattle just in one place. Okay, but he has it. Well, he has all of that in his back. So Asked invite him to go there, and he say, why not? Let's go to the spaceship. So they beam him up to the spaceship. Of course, he was really scared about that. When he just arrived to the spaceship there, he was really white. He was really scared. So, but he decided to go there. Reading that contact report is very interesting, because the conversation between Billy and Yichi is quite interesting. Yichi is some kind of religious person that think about the Bible, Jesus Christ, the God, and everything. But Billy, Billy is quite a personality on that. So that conversation between them is very interesting to look at that. Okay, so he just went up, and they asked with the spaceship, her main ship, just go very high on the atmosphere and put the controls and just did a jump on a space of time and arrived to the 13th century. So she went back on time. And she go down again to France and land on the ground. On the ground, Asked with Billy and Yichi, just land in a place in France, somewhere in France. Billy is saying that he was really amazed how the air was feeling with more oxygen. He said that the air was so very fresh, so he liked it so much. The blue of the sky was very deep, a very different blue of the sky. So he said, during the time we have been lost a lot of oxygen in our atmosphere, We have lost a lot of beauty of the nature. Everything looks greener. The birds that he said were singing very loud, a lot of birds everywhere. So he was saying, oh, looked like the paradise, great place, very nice. So, okay, Asket gave Billy and Yichi a device that they put like the one that I have here with a translator. The way it works, I'm not really sure, but what I understand, if I put it, they can translate words in her ears. So that's the way they could talk with Yichi that speak French. He didn't speak Russian, not German, and not the Asket language, but that's the way that they did it. And they went to meet Gicelli. So the Gicelli was a priest that was living in that area. Gicelli was receiving visits from Asket probably 1 or 2 times before. So Gicelli already knew that lady that come from the star. So Gicelli, a very smart guy, living in a little cabin on the mountains, once in a while he received a visit from a lady that comes from the space, so on the 13th centuries. And Gicelli was very curious about something that Billy has with him. It was his lantern. How he was watching them. As a scientist, he was asking him how it works. Billy explained him how it works. And also Yichi showed him the battery and all the equipment. And he was in very good rapport with him, so he decided to let him use that one. So Yichi gave Gicelli his battery, his transformer, the wires, and explained him how it works. Quite interesting. And they went back to the present time. So they continued their travels, and they left Gicelli with all this equipment. Something very interesting is that you can find, well, Gicelli was using that device just to use it for put the cattle far away or visitors that were not very well received or very welcome at his home. So he was using that. But what you see is very interesting in that kind of document. For example, that book, Fantastic Past. This is one copy of the book in German, page 97 and 98. It's by Robert Charux. He talks about very different things about Gicelli. Gicelli has a lamp that he put on his window and was never burned up. So the author of this book is just suggesting that Gicelli somehow discovered electricity in advance. So he knew how it works because he has some lantern that never extinguished, was put it on his window, and some people were scared about that, and they consider like a magician. Also, Gicelli has a device that he put on his cabin that if he noticed that somebody that he didn't want to talk with, so just connect the battery, and if the guy that is coming to the front door and touch the knocking thing, the metallic part, get electrified. So just they feel that electricity and they just go away. And this is explaining here that is happening. So if somebody is talking the iron door knocker, so they will be feeling that electricity. So this is all documented in a book. That is quite interesting. I show you know that probably the past could be modified. Maybe it's already been modified. And it's in some books, so you can read things that are happening, probably from time travel events that are happening. That's a quite interesting story. You can read it on this contact report. I think it's part 3 of Asked contact notes. Okay, just to finalize this presentation, I'm going to leave you with some thought about what is time. So what time really is? Is time something, is that a fourth dimension? Something that, or is something else? So something that I think time it is, time is a natural law, like gravitation. Just imagine, gravitation is a law that is part of the universe itself. Gravitation, it just tells us that objects that has mass or attract each other, and also creates some perturbation around that, create a gravitational field around each object that has mass. So this is a law, but time is a law. And we know this law with a different name. we already know that law of time. And that name is cause and effect law. So time is the same cause and effect law. But the cause and effect tell us that something that is happening produces an effect. So time is exactly that, show us something that is evolving. It's part of the universe itself, it helps the universe to evolve. We as a human beings, we live under that law. We need to live under that law. Probably in the future, and several lives away from now, we will be more evolved and we are not subject to that law. So that means that we will not living on time, in that timeline. We will be aware of the future and past events all together in the single present. So we'll be just looking at other beings like they really are. Remember the different snapshots. So we'll see the greatness of the human beings. Imagine the greatness of all the beings on the universe, the greatness of the universe itself. So when that law is not affecting us anymore, probably will be in a different level and we don't need to be subject by the cause and effect law. Okay? Thank you so much. That's my presentation.